Hello to whoever may be watching. My name is Preston Brown. I am making a video, or several videos, about my favorite components of the drum set, and also my favorite instruments in general as of late, cymbals. And this is actually my favorite cymbal that I own. I'll probably talk about it at some point in these videos. I'm actually re-recording some of the clips of me talking on a different day. So I'm wearing a different shirt, the cymbals are all set up behind me. So that's when I suddenly pop in with this pink shirt and cymbals set up, that's what's going on. You'll notice in this video loud humming and sometimes quiet humming and sometimes rattling that like comes in and out. It's because I'm in the basement. Our central AC unit is right behind these blue bed sheets. There's an ice maker over there, so that's what all those noises will be. But anyway, this will be one of a few videos of me talking about cymbals. In this video in particular, I will describe exactly which cymbals I will use in the future, because I know what sound I want in the future and exactly which cymbals I want that sound from. So I'm about to stand up and use the camera on the back of the phone, and all these stands will be empty, and I'll describe which cymbals I plan to use in the future. So here is my current drum set. I'm going to point and name which cymbals I'll put in each place. Obviously there are no cymbals there, but just imagine. So the core of this setup that I'm going to describe is 3 components. It's technically 4 cymbals, but it's hi-hats, cymbal on the left, cymbal on the right. Those cymbals will be as follows. My hi-hats will be Mino Byzance 15-inch extra dry medium thin hi-hats. Then on the left side I'll have a ride, a Mino Byzance 22-inch jazz thin ride. Then on the right side, another ride, the Mino Byzance 22-inch extra dry thin ride. Those cymbals are the core of exactly what I feel is my sound, or what will be my sound. I think I have a lot of development to do musically and just in my life to reach that sound. It probably sounds really cringy. Now I'm gonna set up a lot more cymbals, well really just the stands, and I'm gonna point out the same way which cymbals I'll have, because my full setup and sound will have more pieces than the ones I just described. So I will set up these stands and then I will show them the same way. So this is the full setup. Obviously, again, there are no cymbals on these stands at the moment, but this is what the layout will look like, and I will describe what will go in each place. So before I go into detail about the whole setup, I want to specify something about this core part. So this cymbal here, which I said would be the Mino Byzance 22-inch jazz thin ride, I'll swap this out sometimes because I won't always want to use 2 rides. Sometimes I might actually just want to crash on the left. And if I do that, it will be the Mino Byzance traditional 20-inch extra thin hammered crash here. So that is like a sort of asterisk part to this core setup. I can swap out the left one for a crash if I feel it would be appropriate. So now I'll list all of the cymbals, but I'm not going to do it left to right. I'm going to do something that's more or less like most important to least important. The most important cymbals are the ones at this core, like I called it. So the 15-inch Mino Byzance extra dry medium thin hi-hats, 22-inch Mino Byzance jazz thin ride, or if I feel like using a crash here, it will be the 20-inch Mino Byzance traditional extra thin hammered crash. Then the 22-inch Mino Byzance extra dry thin ride. That is like the most important stuff. Then the next most important piece would be this. It would be the Matt Gartzka Fat Stack by Mino. If I were to continue to build on the setup, the next piece I would add would be, right here, a 20-inch Mino Byzance extra dry China. The next most important piece, if I were to build on that setup I just described, would actually be out here. I don't have enough cymbal stands, so I didn't put one here. But like around right here, I would place a 10-inch splash. I don't know exactly which one I would use, but it would most likely be the 10-inch Mino Byzance extra dry splash. with all the parts I just described, that's a pretty complete setup for me. Especially if I have a crash here instead of a ride, because now I would have one of each thing that I want. The hats, a crash, a ride, a stack, a china, and a splash out front. However, if I wanted to use a huge version of my setup, I would move one part and add a few more pieces. So if I back up here, first of all, I would have a 16-inch floor tom here. I just don't have it set up because I don't own any 16-inch floor toms. But if I did, I would put it here. Anyway though, the first change would be that I would add drums, this 10-inch snare over here, and that 16-inch floor tom, like I just mentioned, that is non-existent right now. And with those additions, I would move the cymbal and add a few cymbals. So, over here, this right here would be the Byzance 20-inch extra dry china. I would move that one over here to this cymbal stand. And then on this one, I would put a 20-inch crash. So I don't know exactly which crash I would put here, but I have a few ideas of what it would be. My favorite two ideas of what I would put here as 20-inch crash are, first, a Mino Byzance Jazz 20-inch thin ride, and I would put tape on it and use it as a crash here. Then second, I could use the Byzance Dark by Mino, Byzance Dark 20-inch Big Apple ride, and put it here, because it has a really smooth, mellow sound that I would love to be the cymbal in this spot. So that's how this would look. There would be 22-inch ride, 18-inch stack, the fat stack, 20-inch crash, 20-inch china. Then if we move over to this side, I have added a 10-inch snare drum. And for cymbals, I would add a 20-inch crash right here. And that would be regardless of whether I'm using a crash or a ride in this position. I would still add a 20-inch crash right there. And again, for this 20-inch crash on the far left, I don't know exactly which cymbal I'd want here. My guess right now is that I would want a 20-inch Mino Byzance extra dry thin crash. But if I discover any new cymbals between now and then that I would rather put here instead, I might use, anything else. I don't know at the moment. Red shirt me coming back to say something. I called this pink last time. I think it's more red, but anyway. I forgot to mention that there is another cymbal setup. It's more like the first setup I described. It's smaller, just hats and two rides. And I'll describe that really quickly. This other setup is really specific. I will use this if and when I collaborate with a specific one of my idols. And I'm going to turn the camera around and show what it would be. So this setup. I know I have all these cymbal stands set up. I'm not using all of them to describe this other setup. I'm just going to point to the ones I am using. So, hi-hats. These will be 15-inch Mino Byzance Foundry Reserve hi-hats. On the left here will be a 22-inch Mino Byzance Foundry Reserve light ride. And on the right will be a 22-inch Mino Byzance Foundry Reserve ride, the one that's labeled ride. It's it's slightly heavier than the light ride. And maybe I might put a crash on the right side. These are for a different cymbal setup, so it wouldn't be in either of those exact places. It would be more like here. But that's because in my favorite performances by this musician, the guy on drum set uses hats, two rides, and a crash right here. And I like that sound and look. And I can't say exactly which cymbal that would be over here. Maybe it would be like the Byzance Foundry Reserve 20-inch crash, but maybe it would be something with a completely different vibe, like the Istanbul Agop, or Agop, I don't know how people say it, 20-inch signature crash, or maybe even the 20-inch Exist dry dark crash, or I don't know, there are a bunch of options for what this could be over here. It would have to be relatively thunderous. But anyway, back to gray shirt me. So that is the full setup of cymbals that I plan to use in the future. In the previous video on this YouTube channel, I described ideas I have on piano, and I'm going to restate something I said in that video, which is I go to school in 2 months for music, and I intend to not for a long time to not try to make any full compositions. Instead, I intend to learn a lot about as much as I can. The AC just came on, so it'll start humming. I plan to learn a lot about music and about a lot of different kinds of music. So after learning and developing, I plan to come back to these ideas that I've had up to June 2022. And I want to turn them into full compositions that will be good, to me at least. Because right now I just don't have the required stuff to make them, in my eyes, good compositions. And this is relevant when I talk about this non-existent cymbal setup behind me, because once I reach that point in my life where I have learned so much and I feel ready to make complex compositions, this is the sound that I want. Those cymbals are the exact sound I want in my later compositions. I also have a pretty solid idea of the exact drum sounds that I want, and maybe I'll describe that, but in a different video. And I know this is like a weird thing to make and publicize, this video that I've made, but I'm doing it because I admire people like Benny Greb who know what their sound is from early on. Like when Benny Greb made his signature cymbals, probably 12 years ago now, that is his sound, and he's actually been using, I don't know if this streak still stands today in June 2022, but he actually uses his original Benny Greb ride, the exact one. He's been taking that to every recording and to shows and stuff, because he knew what his sound was then, and it's still his sound now. He just knew. I admire that in musicians, and I guess in other artists. So I don't know. I just kind of wanted to put it out there that I also know what my sound is. Damn, I hope that didn't sound egotistical. I didn't mean for it to be. Anyway, before I get any goofier and more cringe, I'm going to bring this video to a close. And in another video, I'm going to actually put cymbals on all of these cymbal stands to display my current cymbals, the cymbals I currently own. So, goodbye. I finished recording all the clips from the video, and I also just finished editing them, but I actually came back so that I can get a certain shot, which I will show you. This is the shot. I didn't want to leave the video with only shots of empty cymbal stands. I put all the cymbals up, since even though these aren't the cymbals I just named, all those minor Byzance cymbals, I think there's still value in seeing the whole setup with cymbals, so it doesn't look as empty. One more thing, it's a really small and specific detail, but I wanted to include it. I have Evans drum heads set up all around this kit, specifically EC2 clears and an ST, I think it's called ST dry on the snare. I don't actually like the sounds of those heads all that much. Really, Evans heads in general, I think they sound nice at high tunings, but I don't feel anything in response to their sound. I really like Remo drum heads. I'm just using these because to me it feels kind of like a blank, just kind of their sound while I get back in the groove of practicing before I go to school. But yeah, if I wanted to represent what my sound is on these, I would have put Remo Emperor coated all around, but with a different snare head, Ambassador Vintage coated. I really like that one. Now that's actually the last thing I wanted to say. So I guess